So, you're learning bass and you want to learn songs. You might have the tab, you might have the sheet music, you might be learning it by ear. You might even be learning from a YouTube video. But getting those notes under your fingers and memorizing a tune can be pretty tricky for a lot of beginner players. So today, let's look at 5 tips that will help you with getting a complete song under your fingers and into your memory banks ready for a band rehearsal. So, tip number 1, listen to the song. Over and over and over again. Do this before even attempting to pick up your instrument. Why is this? Well, think about some of your favourite songs. You could probably sing them away from the original recording. You know the form, you know all the odd little bits. You have a great overview of what the song is. When you're learning a song, this familiarity with the form will be massively important and it'll give you a great ordered framework as a guide. Some songs are incredibly simple in both form and bass line. Some songs have one bass riff throughout, some songs have very simple verse, chorus form, but some songs are complex. A song like Bohemian Rhapsody is a great example. It's incredibly famous, but imagine that you'd never heard it before and you had to learn it. Most people know the form of Bohemian Rhapsody. They know all the big changes, from ballad to opera to rock to the soft ending. But if you don't know those sections and you just rush headlong into learning the notes, one at a time, it's going to seem like a pretty big challenge. Good Vibrations by the Beach Boys is another example of something fairly odd and complex in form that most people can sing along to just because they've heard it so many times. Then if you take something like Close to the Edge by Yes, that's going to be a challenge for anyone to learn. You need to listen to it first. Familiarity of the song and the form is key to making things as simple as possible going forward. Tip number 2 is make a form chart. After listening to the song a few times, try sketching out the form on a piece of paper. Don't use apps or anything like that, just a piece of paper and a pen. Listen through and make notes on the form sections. Intro, verse, chorus, middle 8, etc. Then, once you have the general sections, you can listen again and chart out the bars for each section. Listen through, counting out as you go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, etc. You'll also want to make notes on any time changes in there too. So if you hear an odd bar of 2/4 or 5/4 or anything like that, mark that in as well as the general meter of the piece. So if the main starting time is 4/4, write that in. Sketch out as much information as you're going to need in the early stages. This form chart can serve as a cheat sheet when adding chord symbols or as a guide if you want to write out the standard notation or tab. We're building up a visual representation of the song, and all of this helps with the memorization process. You can see the song as well as hearing it. For tip number 3, take note of what types of bass line are involved. Is it riffs or is it a general outline of a chord progression? Is it both? And what's the difference? Well, a riff is going to be a repeating melodic figure like this. And a bass line outlining the chords might be more like this. So that bass line might be root notes, or it could be more melodic using other chord tones, scales and chromatic notes, but it's not a repetitive hook. So why does this matter? Well, that's because it can make a big difference to the learning process and the speed of memorizing the tune. If it's only riff-based, then you'll probably be able to learn the song very quickly. Many riff-based songs have only a few hooks, and that's it. Take We Are Family by Chic as an example. We've got the main intro and chorus riff. And then we have the verse riff. And that's pretty much all of the song. You just need to learn how many times to play each riff in each section. Again, the cheat sheet is going to help because you can actually simplify it by saying verse riff times 4 or chorus riff times 8. As long as you can learn the riffs, you're good to go. Riff-based songs are great for beginner bass players because of this. Now, if it's a chord progression outline, then this is where the form sheet can come in really handy because we can just add chord symbols to our chart. So as an example, here's a sample chord progression of F major, C major, D minor, B flat major. We just place that in our chart and then we can read along, maybe just playing the root notes to begin with. So with just root notes, we might have F, C, D, B flat. With added extra chord tones like the 5th and 3rd, we might have So you can just play around the chords like that, or you can learn exactly what was played on the original. Either way, we have a chart that we can follow as a guide, and we can use the key and chords as anchor points throughout. If you know the chord progression, you remove that linear learning of a stream of notes from the equation, you've got a framework to build from. And then, even if you don't play exactly what was played, at least you won't go wrong in a gig setting. As long as you outline those chords, you should be fine. For tip number 4, in terms of learning the actual notes in there, I would say it's really worth your while investing some time in a study of basic harmony. So that's keys, intervals, basic scales, basic chord construction, basic chords in a key. The more you can learn, the more familiar fundamental patterns you'll start to see in everything that you play. For example, the opening riff to the tune Night Boat to Cairo by Madness sounds like this. Now, if you were playing that song and learning it one note at a time with absolutely no idea about arpeggios, you might see some patterns in there, but it wouldn't really mean much. You know, you're going to be playing C or thinking 3rd fret of the A string, 2nd fret there. You might see that repeating pattern, but like I say, it's not going to mean much. If you know your basic major and minor arpeggios, then it's just a case of C major, B flat minor. Done. C major, B flat minor. Just that, and you've got it. Then, if you learn your intervals for a riff like Lady Marmalade, if we're in the key of G minor, we can see the root note, the 5th, the minor 7th, the minor 3rd on the top, then minor 7th to the root note and to C. I know all of those intervals, how they sound away from the bass. They all have a certain character. I also know that's an outline of a G minor 7 chord. It's all familiar stuff. The more you learn, the more fundamental building blocks that you'll see. Theory and harmony is not just a load of weird words and labels with no practical application. All these labels help to store those patterns in the brain in a systemized way. Imagine trying to describe and use the color blue in general everyday life without the label blue. You know, what a pain in the ass. Labels and names help to store that information for future use in the brain. Music is no different. Then imagine learning the chord progression of F major, C major, D minor, B flat major, like we just looked at. You need to work around that progression and connect the chords. Well, an understanding of the arpeggios and how we use them will be a massive help. But also understanding the chords in a major key is going to help too. The progression is in the key of F major. The chords are 1, 5, 6, and 4. So just think of the F major scale. You got F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, and then F. So F is 1, then C is 5. F, G, A, B flat, C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then D minor is 6, and then B flat is 4. If you know that chord progression as 1, 5, 6, 4, you can play it in any key, and you also don't need to think about each individual chord. We see the progression as one whole thing, just 1, 5, 6, 4 in F. Learn harmony, and all this is totally second nature. You don't need to think about it. Okay, lastly, for tip number 5, get off that chart as soon as possible. If you're playing a gig that allows for sheet music, like a theatre show, then fair enough. Read the chart. But if you're just building your own personal repertoire, or learning for a covers band, or to jam with friends, use that cheat sheet that we compiled and then work your way backwards. Remove the chords or riffs first, then take out the bars, and by that point, you're going to be fine. Also, play along with the original recording for as long as you need, and then finally try playing away from the original. If you can play the whole tune away from any written music or recordings, then you know it. It's a great, great test. When you come to play with other people who might also not know the tune too well, you'll have the advantage of knowing it inside out with no need for musical prompts or anything like that. If you all are having problems, none of you know it very well, you're just going to be stuttering along, looking for prompts that aren't there. Okay, so hopefully these tips will help a little with building your repertoire and learning songs. Building that repertoire is one of the most important elements of practice because everything eventually relates to the music that you want to learn. All of the technical exercises, scales, arpeggios, theory exercises, reading exercises, All of it is pointless in a vacuum. When you have a good varied repertoire, all of the other musical education will make more sense because you're already going to have a mental library of musical examples to draw from. So give me a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and also leave a comment to let me know what other areas of bass study you'd like me to cover. There are already over 800 free lessons on the channel that we've built up over the last 11 years, and they are all systemized and organized over at the TalkingBass website in the lesson map. So follow the link in the info below to visit TalkingBass and sign up to the site for free to gain access to all of the free goodies and downloads like the scale reference ebook, the 25 bass groove challenge, the forums, the chat rooms, and then if you want to go deeper, you can purchase one of the premium courses. We've got beginner bass, reading, scales, chord tones, slap, technique, and everything in between. So follow the link in the info below, and I'll see you next week.